Hello, good evening. It's another Monday and another We Are Talking About You. Today it's with my dear friend Stiana Hubert. I'm Sonka. I'm an intuitive life coach, nutritional therapist, NLP practitioner, and the leader of Women's Business Club in Macclesfield. So, hello, Stiana. I'm really glad you joined us this evening. This is really exciting. This is really exciting because we know each other. It's no reason to hide it. We know each other really, really well. We studied for 3 years nutritional therapy. For 2 years, sat every lecture next to each other. And we were kind of disappointed. We were kind of holding the seat for each other. Disappointed. One of us was running like, "Oh, come on!" So yeah, we've known each other probably for 5 years now, wasn't it? 6 years. 6 years now. Yeah. But we've been through a lot together. But what if anybody asked me about you, what I always say, well, Stiana taught me lots about acceptance and about love, and it's absolutely true because I since I've known you, I've become a better person, and that's without. Don't cry, can cry at the end.
Get the tissues.
We've got lots to talk about. But acceptance and love is two things that I definitely go with you for me, and I've learned a lot about them from you. So definitely you made me a better person.
It's so lovely to say.
Well, it's true. So why not publicly? Amazing.
So you've never heard it any other way.
So the reason I ask you to come and join me in these talk or chats I'm doing is just exactly that, because I want you to share the acceptance, the love. You're turning up, doesn't matter what's happening in your life, and you've been through some rough stuff and rough times, and I never remember you not giving love or being kind of mean or cranky or anything. I can recognize when you're on the edge now, but you are no saint, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so I wanted others to have a piece of you and share with others that acceptance and love, and have you actually gone around and about life with everything what you've been through. So would you like to just give us a short let's call it bio, because that's what it calls these days. So a little bit about you before we dive into thick of it. Think of your life, really.
Oh, that was such a lovely intro. I'm so pleased it's being recorded.
Is it?
I hope so. I can pull it up one day when you're grumpy with me.
Yeah.
No, that was so lovely, and the feeling's completely mutual. I think I genuinely believe we all meet people in our lives at exactly the point we need them. And our paths cross for specific reasons, whether that's the person's there to teach you something, or the person's there to help you evolve, or the person's there to actually awaken you, or the person's there to walk the rest of the journey with you. Whatever the reason is, I truly believe we meet people for a specific reason, and I'm
hoping we tick few of those boxes.
We tick all of them, and we're going to go the whole way. So we've been so close since finishing the 3 years of studying together. Yes. In fact, we actually live a couple of roads away from each other. So we've made it our mission to be close. So it's lovely. And I'm so honored to be with you tonight and have this conversation with you. So thank you for inviting me. So for those of you who don't know me, so I'm Stiana Hubert. I am trying to do a bio here. So I'm a nutritional therapist. I've also recently qualified as an NLP practitioner and timeline therapist. And I I've run my business since finishing my studies, and I work predominantly with women who have hormone and thyroid issues, who struggle with fatigue, and really who just want to get their health and their life back. And my own story has motivated me, but I'm sure we're going to be diving into that tonight, which is why I'm here. So basically that's in a nutshell what I do. And I do functional medicine. So
I was
Yeah,
just going
that
to
as well.
say you're going through your functional medicine studies as well, and you're
Yeah,
halfway through now, so it's
yeah,
exciting, and it is massive kind of chip on the shoulder because it's so difficult and it takes time and dedication. So that's for sure. Uh,
dedication, time, definitely, and a lot of money.
what doesn't?
Exactly.
Everything we've done, all the self-development, that's where it
Yeah,
starts. But it's amazing when you see passing it on to your clients, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah.
We'll get to it. Let's start at the beginning. You, as a very vital, active, sociable female, kind of light being in your life. Lots of sports. Some of them I've never heard of, or certainly wouldn't try.
That doesn't mean
Climbing,
anything.
like climbing and cycling, even in winter and things like that, and still having fun. Uh, thank God we are all different. Managing people. You lived in London for some time. And you really lived. Yeah, that's our little puppy. Probably somebody by the door. Some things working from home you can't. You can't influence. So you lived in London. You lived proper London life, busy, sociable, weekends, active, and suddenly something happened. What happened, Stiana?
Well, actually, I was living in London for 5 years, and then we did actually move up to Cheshire. We moved up to Macclesfield after we went traveling for just short of 10 months. Me and my now husband, we went traveling through southern Africa, rock climbing, and living out of a back of a 4x4, pickup truck that we kind of converted, and then a tent, which was amazing, an amazing experience traveling through southern Africa. And we came back and knew that London wasn't quite the place for us, so we had moved up to Macclesfield, and actually was a massive transformational point for me because my hobbies of I was working in corporate, so quite senior position, lots of responsibility in finance and managing quite a lot of people, and I absolutely loved my job. I love working with people. I love being a team leader. I love being a manager. I get a huge amount of pleasure out of empowering and inspiring
Bossing people
people.
around, yeah.
Kind of. No, it's really about helping people grow and empowering them. But I suppose there's different terminologies for it. My kids might agree with that. Your take on it. So I got into cycling as a result of my knees being really bad. And to cut a very long story short, it became not an obsession, but I loved it so much. So I would commute to work every day, cycling up quite a steep hill. I think one you wouldn't even want to drive up. And no matter what it was, no matter what the weather was. And yeah, I was really active, really fit, really strong, in the best shape of my life. And then just by one race we did, which is kind of cycling for 48 hours, camping overnight. So you cycle with all of your camp gear. So the first day you cycle for 10 hours and you navigate whilst on the bike. And then the next day is 6 hours. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So it's like, ordnance, orienteering, trying to find trig points. And then unfortunately, when we came back from that, my health crashed. And I then found out I had viral meningitis. I was in hospital a week later. And it kind of became a slippery slope from then onwards, really. I had viral meningitis, and then I got shingles, and then I got anterior uveitis, and then I got it became a standing joke in the office that if it had an itis at the back of it, I would have had it. So, so that obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, just means inflammation. But I mean, even at the time for me, it just didn't really mean much because it was just a diagnosis. And it's like, okay, what pill can I take? Okay, how long is it going to take to get over it? And then I would just go about my normal day-to-day stuff, get back on my bike, push myself, work really long hours, eat the diet I was eating, go out and drink, and do all the kind of stuff that I was doing before, even although my body was kind of retaliating. And I did make changes, but I don't think enough. And then when we had our first child, I remember Andrew's mum, my mother-in-law, laughing, going, "This is the healthiest you've been in years." Because actually during the pregnancy, down to my, due to my hormones, I was actually really, really healthy during the pregnancy. And then his birth wasn't ideal because he had placenta. It was placenta previa, so it had to be a C-section. And I then ended up having a infection for 8 weeks. So I was on one course of antibiotics after another. But again, it didn't really impact my health that much, and I was okay. And then we had our daughter, and unfortunately, it was quite a long labor, 3 days in labor. She was 2 weeks overdue already, and we were kind of resisting sort of the NHS, forcing the birth. So we kind of were quite insisting that I wanted to have a natural birth post the previous section. And it ended up being not problematic, but I lost a huge amount of blood. And it was quite a traumatic birth on many levels, but it was amazing as well. It was so good to, have the privilege to experience what a natural birth was like. So unfortunately for me, a few months after her birth, my health just started to crash, and I had labyrinthitis. If anyone who doesn't know what that is, I just remember being with a group of friends and trying to walk from a friend's kitchen, trying to get to the table, but I ended up going completely the other way. And I was just very dizzy and disorientated. But again, like with everything, I was like, okay, go to the doctor, get some pills. What can I do? I'll be fine. I'll just take the pills and get better. And at that point, I was doing my dissertation in my final year of studying social work. So I was kind of in the thick of waking up really early, trying to do writing research. I was also on placement working with children in Stockport in social care. And I was breastfeeding my daughter and expressing milk, thinking I could be superwoman, I could do everything. But sadly, it didn't quite play out as I'd planned. So it kind of meant that a few months into that, being back at uni, being on placement, trying to deal with our daughter, getting up, going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm researching, then feeding her in the middle of the night, then waking up at 6 and getting maybe 4 hours sleep, just caught up on me, and as it should with any of us. And my body just basically said, look, I've been telling you for so many years now to listen, so I have no choice. I'm literally just going to pull the plug on you. And that is basically what happened. I was in a meeting in Stockport with a mental health practitioner, and I had to excuse myself from the meeting, go to the toilet. I had complete extreme dumping. I had to excuse myself from the thing. I went to the car and realized actually my whole body just shut down. I couldn't drive. I was shaking. My body was going into panic mode. I was having a panic attack. And I just had to call Andrew and said, I'm stuck. You're going to have to help me. And he was luckily not a million miles away with his job and could come and pick me up. The story from that point gets much worse because, of course, at that point you just think, well, it's fine, I'm going to be fine. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite pan out that way. And what ended up being one panic attack ended up being 8 panic attacks in a day, ended up being, not being able to regulate my body temperature, not being able to communicate at all, not even being able to read to our son because I couldn't actually even read Thomas the Tank Engine, the book. I couldn't get the words out. I was having tics. I was having severe dumping syndrome. I couldn't keep food in, so I was losing a lot of weight. I just remember Andrew having to put 6 blankets on me at night to try and help me regulate my body temperature. And it was a case of going to the doctors at least 3 times a week, going like, hello, what's going on? Okay, so you've always helped me with a pill. Give it to me. Just give it up, like anything. Just give it to me.
Looking for the same solution to the problem.
Yeah,
so
it's
how
always
long
worked.
It's been before the first signs after the cycling competition or whatever that was, or to the point that
4 years.
Panic attack, 4 years. So it's quite a long
I'm
time.
Stubborn.
Yeah, it's quite a long time, and I wanted to point that out because it's never overnight.
Oh no.
But we are very quick to ignore the signs, get a little bit worried and panicky while we are in the worst of it, and then you say take a pill or we get better. and we are straight on what we were doing before. So none of us are strangers to living like that. It just depends how much we push and how long our body actually is going to give. And
Absolutely.
in a way, and some people may live like that for 20 years even, so there's no time scale on it. And in a way, I'm sure maybe you see that, maybe not. But you were kind of lucky that your body reacted so quickly. That it was
Yeah, I'm very
four
grateful for
years,
it. Yeah, I'm
four
very grateful.
years. So you didn't, and then you could actually take it into your hands slowly. Obviously, again, it didn't happen overnight. But you started seeing doctors, as you said, asking for the pill. But there was a point when you said, right, this is not right, there's something more happening, you're not telling me, or I don't know, you either don't know or you're not telling me everything, or something is not quite, I'm telling you this thing and you are telling me the other. So it got to the point that you took your health into your own hands, basically.
Yeah, and I think I see this with so many of my clients. I think somewhere I have the lists that I used to take into the GP with all my symptoms, and having written it down, going, but I have all these symptoms, and you're telling me I've got a nervous breakdown. I'm like, no, that doesn't marry up. And to be fair, I tried so many different doctors. Some were amazing, some were less responsive. They were quite dismissive and just say, just take the antidepressant and kind of stop bothering me. And I did find a doctor who, she was very supportive, and I did go into her and say, look, actually it's the fear. I've got 2 small children and I'm actually scared every night I'm going to die. I'm lying in bed and I'm terrified of death because my heart's stopping. Like, I don't feel like things are right. This is so much more, and whilst I can live with it, it's my children I'm concerned about. So because of that sort of cry for help and playing the sort of more, playing on words of being a mom and her being a mom, she kind of sent me for an MRI scan, and we then saw some imbalances in my brain. And some dysfunction there, and that then kind of prompted her to go, okay, well, maybe we need to kind of refer on, and that then got me diagnosed with fibromyalgia at Stepping Hill. But I mean, even having had the diagnosis, and I'll never forget it, it's like yesterday, and I'm sure some people who go through these things can relate it, because I was so excited to go to this appointment. It's ridiculous. Like,
I was
like,
they'll know what to do with me.
I know, it's like, yes, they are going to help me. This is like
now
the one thing. I know. So
different
I
pill,
remember
5
going,
weeks.
I remember feeling so ill getting there, and having to drive me and lying in the car, just thinking I've got no energy, but we're going. And he had both the kids in the back of the car. He's just been a saint throughout, but then he had to drive round and round and round with the kids. I think he took them to a local park while I went in, had the appointments. And yeah, so frustrating and disappointing, because all they told me is that you've got a fibromyalgia. Okay, great. I was like, great, it's brilliant. So what do I do now? Well, apart from pain meds and CBT, there really isn't much. And so that's really when I started to take things into my own hands. I think being a natural, I've always been an action taker, always, my whole life. I take action when I need to. But I had a diagnosis, and that meant I could start looking as to what can I do. And that's when things started to move forward for me, because that's when I started to go, okay, right, the NHS is not going to help me here. I need to understand what's going on. And then I found Dr. Raymond Perrin. He is an osteopath who works with people with ME and fibromyalgia, and he was amazing. So he kind of really helped me and got me on my path, because through him I met Gail Sumner, who then recommended that I look at the Optimum Health Clinic, and that got me into nutrition. And then I got into connection with Nikki Gratrix. And so all these little things were all little stepping stones in the right direction. But I knew as soon as I did my first, because I remember speaking to Gail Sumner about it, and she said, oh, have you heard of your adrenals? No, were they? No idea what they were.
Have any of it?
Yeah, is it in my body? Okay, so and when I got them tested, I just remember that aha moment of going, oh, it's like a flat line. So so that's why I literally have no energy, and that's why I'm having the panic attacks, because my body is literally in complete burnout mode. So that was
Before
the
you
first
carry on,
point.
if you don't mind, I stop you there
No.
because what I'm interested in, because when I'm listening to it, even for me not going through it and knowing the story, is like, oh my God, what a courage. Because you went from cycling for 2 days, with no issues, to literally not being able to do anything, not even, as you said, read or, so mentally, and I don't mean like they were telling you antidepressants and things, a mindset. For me, there is big question mark there. How did you deal with that? How I know you mentioned 2 children, which was amazing drive. But when you don't have that energy to literally find that last piece of it, your mindset has to be really, really strong. So do you remember, were you aware of anything in particular? What, what, what driven you further, and how you actually managed to get out of the bed every morning and do what you have to do and kind of carry on? Because from being so active to being so dependent, really, for some people, it would be devastating.
Well, the short and long answer to this was it was really hard. I'm a really strong person. I've always been very determined no matter what. I think even if I'm down and kicked down 100 times, I'm always going to get up. So that's just in my makeup. That's who I am. But I was a broken woman.
And that's what you got there to the state in a way, isn't it? So it's you can see the double whammy.
Yeah, that's what got me sick in the first place, is because I am that driven
It's just,
person who think you can do everything and more.
but on the other side, it actually helped you through it.
Yeah,
So
it did.
it's
But
amazing how we can use our personality and character, the different ways if we know and we are aware of
yeah,
it.
but I think it also had its downsides, because whilst you can have a mindset and be motivated, I actually don't think it was always a positive, because there was something about believing you can get better despite all odds. And you can believe it, but if there's any doubt internally, even the smallest amount, it will stop that progression of healing. And what I think I found, I mean, there was many, not wanting to get all morbid and get into the dark moments, but there was some really dark times in that healing time of mine, because it was years, whilst it only took 10 months to be diagnosed. And then I went to see Raymond, and then I got hope. When I realized the healing wasn't happening quickly, when everyone said it was going to take 2 years, it got dark, very dark, because actually I was sicker than ever on many levels. And I wasn't getting better. I was really, and my kids were more demanding, and the little energy I had to put with them, and it was challenging. And obviously initially Andrew could take a lot of time off and be present, but that couldn't stay like that. So we had to find a way of managing, and it was really difficult. But I think the thing that really swung it for me in terms of mindset is, and this is interesting, because now that I've studied NLP, I can reflect back on it, actually, because I can kind of think.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because it was my next question, actually. Now it's fine. It's now joined together, because you can look at it from 2 different perspectives now.
Yeah, I was definitely below the line. So, in NLP, we have this concept of being above the line or below the line. So obviously above the line is where you're kind of taking responsibility, accountability, that you're 100% responsible for your life, and that you're being empowered. And then when you're below the line, you're in that victim mentality, things are happening to you. So it's hard. I've got loads of clients come to me with that same being, and I think a lot of us are operating below the line most of the time anyway.
It's not possible to be still above. again, it's
No.
just the awareness when
Yeah.
you drop below. Yeah, but under
But I
these
think,
circumstances, it's kind of given in a way, at least to start with, isn't it?
yeah, because you feel like the victim. You
Mm.
feel like, why me? You know, why has this happened to me? Why am I not having this time with my children? Why can't I take them to the park? Why is my kids missing out on this social stuff with people? Why can't I do normal things with my kids? Why can't I push my kid in the buggy? Why can't I hold my child without my arms feeling tired? Why can't I read to my child at night? All these things that was happening constantly, why me? Why me? So you get into that victim mentality.
Mm.
And it's quite a dangerous place to be because you're constantly looking at it from the wrong perspective.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we can get stuck in that. And I know I definitely was stuck in there for periods without a shadow of a doubt. So I think the things that shifted for me is when I accepted where I was, so that the fear didn't get the better of me. So I moved from that outside in mentality to that inside out mentality. So I moved from thinking it's my external environment that's controlling me to, no, hang on, it's your thoughts and your acceptance of the situation and what's going on that's controlling your external environment. And I remember this again like yesterday. I lay in bed and I was terrified of going to bed because I used to have a specific routine. I would get up in the morning and be motivated to be with the kids for a bit, but then I would get them off to school, preschool, so I could come back to bed. And then, you know, that time in bed, I would have like 3 hours of being able to rest. But the problem is my symptoms were so bad that it wasn't a restful period. I would lie shaking, vibrating, burning, just horrific symptoms. My heart would be hurting or it would feel like it would be stopping. And I was actually genuinely scared. So, you know, we tend to fear death, which is a strange thing because it's the only thing that we know is certain in life.
Yeah.
But we do fear it. And I think it's
and
the one.
especially you feel you've got so much to give and so much to live. It's not, and you've
Yeah. And
got
when you've
two
just become a
children, you've got
mum, oh,
responsibility,
yeah, it's really
and
hard.
you just want to enjoy it. So it must be scary at that point.
It
And
is. It's a
also,
strange thing because people who become parents, and I don't mean this to sound strange for those who haven't, but I never used to be scared of flying till I became a parent. And now I'm like, oh, I don't want to die because in case my kids. And I've spoken to lots of mums about it and they all feel like that. I think your awareness of that heightens when you become a mum because you've got someone who needs you. And it's that fear of, oh, what's going to happen if I'm not here? And that fear of death becomes much greater. But I think the one thing I learned through this journey is that when we go through real challenges in our lives, we learn to face the fact that there's no way out. It's almost like there was no way out for me. I couldn't get out of the
you just
situation.
have to get through it.
I had to get through it. Yeah, I had to get through it. And the only way I was going to get through it was to accept it, to accept where I was and to know that my body was going to heal if I believed it would heal. And so I would lie in bed and just go, I honor you, I respect you, I love you, and I know you're healing, you know. And I would lie there and it would be really hard, but I knew that my body would heal. I really, really always knew my body would heal. And that is the bits that got me through to then getting to a point once I stopped fighting the process, fighting the system, fighting my body, and accepted where I was. That's when the healing started to happen.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I don't think we don't realize how acceptance can be powerful, and kind of because it's like coming in alignment with yourself and with all the circumstances and universe, if that's your way of looking at things, and suddenly the harmony is there, and also it opens different options for us and opportunities, and we look at the world a little bit differently with a little bit more open eyes. So suddenly from there we kind of see a little bit more peripheral, and we can see how we can maneuver through that the only path we've seen before is not necessarily the only one, but we can maneuver around, which is absolutely beautiful. And that's what you've done ever since. You're just improving. And to be honest, when we've met, I had no idea you've been through anything like that. And to start with, and probably you got this a lot. It's like, no, I can't do that. I can't walk over there.
I remember this.
I can't. It's like,
you were like, well, why not?
It's just, right, where we're going. And it's like, no, I can't walk. It's too school. It's too far. I was like, at the end of the road, and because you look nothing like ill person, but that's not. Excuse me. It's not even that. You didn't act like one. In any conversation with other people at college, not once from your behavior, I would kind of sense you're going through such a tough times. And at that point, you were already walking, and you weren't on a wheelchair anymore. But it wasn't that long before since you actually got out of the wheelchair and was able to move. So it was still very fresh. But there was not once that you felt sorry for yourself. And actually, I kind of wished you explained a little bit more. But you never really, because you just didn't feel like, you didn't want to live in that mentality anymore. And it was evident that you are just improving, and that's not who you are. So it was amazing. It was confusing to start with before we obviously got talking on one of our journeys home or from college or to college. And
I think it was Jonathan that mentioned it to you, actually.
Or something. Yes, because you posted something on Instagram with like 125 hashtags related to fibromyalgia and everything like that. And it's like, well, why is she doing that? I have no idea. And then actually we had a conversation. So with Jonathan, my husband, here, because we already followed you at that point. So it was quite time in when we actually met, since we met each other, when I found out what your journey was. So that strength, that commitment, and that mentality of I'm in control and I'm controlling the situation, and I don't feel sorry for myself. There was there, the strength. So it was amazing. But you didn't stop there. Obviously, you were walking, you were a little bit more independent and everything, but you didn't stop there. You wanted to get as better as you can, or as well as you can, obviously. And you've done amazing in those 5-6 years we've known each other. You are happy to walk to school. You have no problems. That last week you've done like 32 miles or whatever.
Yeah, I did loads last week.
It's absolutely amazing. And I know it's not always like that. Sometimes you've got your downtime. Sometimes shingles come back and things like that. But overall, it was through the listening to your body, honoring it, accepting it. So that's where the journey started. But then there was a little twist. And that's the twist which took you where you are today, dealing with the thyroid issues, hormonal issues, and fatigue with ladies. And there is a reason why this is very close to your heart. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you say all the previous stuff, because I think I do remember your face.
Yeah,
when we used to go, well, we're just going to go and get some lunch, or we're just going to go, and you were like, oh God, what's wrong with her? Like, it's literally.
And when you said you were just waddled up behind us, like, come on, hurry up.
But I think at the end of the day, one of the things that I've never enjoyed doing is being on forums talking about my health or wanting support. It's just not that's not me as an individual. I don't really like to kind of embody the illness and have the label. Having the label for me has never been a positive thing, because for me it's just a term, and really I don't want to. So I find Instagram, having a business, quite hard, because actually Hashimoto's warrior, Hashimoto's healing, all these kind of things, which I'll talk about more, or fibromyalgia, whatever, it's great, but actually I don't like those labels, because for me, I'm Stiana, and I'm evolving as a human, and this is my journey. And just like we wouldn't hashtag the fact that we had to cross a bridge when we went on a hike, it's just a bridge, and it might have been one that was half falling down, but at the end of the day, it's the journey you're here to walk, to find yourself. And for me, it's one I'm very grateful for, because I think I remember at a very young age that when I first understood the word self-actualization, I knew that that was my purpose here. And I knew I had to get there, but it wasn't always so easy when you're looking down a pint glass, or having a few glasses too many wine, or being sociable, or wanting to mountain bike and climb and whatever. But maybe getting the opportunity through illness to get closer to the true me and my own essence, it's much easier to connect to that process of self-actualization. And I'm never stopping learning, because I learn every single day. You know, I
we
love
get more
reading.
fussy as well, don't we? Because what we
Oh
had
yeah,
like 3 months ago, it's like, oh yeah, I feel really good, and then something is like, oh, what's that? Shall we test? Shall we? You know, so your standards get higher and higher, and I can see it across the board. And certainly, conversation we are having is like, we should be grateful. We should be. You remember 3 years ago how we felt?
No,
You know,
absolutely. And I think that is the
that's good.
process.
That's
That is the
listening to the
process.
body, and it's giving us more and more information, isn't it?
So coming back to your question, so
Yeah.
again, listening to the body at the very outset, when I took these symptoms to the GP, you know, one of the key symptoms I complained about, and this is before I had my breakdown. I remember being in the children's service in Stockport with the schools, and sitting in the office when I wasn't going out into the schools with as many heaters as I could, because my feet were so cold. They were burning. And I couldn't understand why my feet were so cold. They were literally burning, burning, burning. And it was a joke in the office, because I would have like 3 heaters on me trying to get my feet warm. And you know, along with all the other symptoms, I had classic thyroid symptoms, but it was never picked up. So it wasn't until we were kind of getting towards the end of our second year at college, you know, nearly finished our second year, that I realized that I had Hashimoto's, because I thought, hang on, this, you know, I think we were doing an endocrine lecture. And I thought, oh, this is all sounding far too familiar.
I can see myself in this one a little bit more than the others.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think all of us thought we were sick all the time. Like,
hey, that's what I mean.
I've got that. I've got that. I've got that. So, you know, we all were kind of leaving every lecture going, oh my gosh, got all these health problems. But yeah, you're right. That one was a little bit more spot on. And I then decided that I was going to invest in the test and get my thyroid tested. And yeah, not surprisingly, you know, my antibodies, my thyroid peroxidase antibodies were quite high. They were just under 600, which actually I dare not think what they were when it all started, because already, as you just said, I was out of my wheelchair. I was so much better. I'd done so much work. I'd been gluten-free at that point for, I don't know how many years we're in at that point, but, you know, a good 5 years, whatever, dairy-free, hardly any sugar. So I'd already made so many different, you know, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, sleeping, you know, all the stuff I could do, earthing, everything, every biohack I could throw at myself. I was biohacking like mad.
Lymphatic system.
Everything. I was literally doing it all, meditating, yoga, breathing, everything. So my antibodies were still very high, but of course my thyroid was still normal. You know, in the GP range, it was still normal, and it's still normal today, funny enough. So it's made me incredibly passionate, because I think that there are so many thousands of women out there going through a similar hell to what I did, and maybe even worse. And they're not being listened to.
Not everybody has to experience what you've got. Some people maybe worse, and many people, actually many women are much better, and it's more subtle, and that is more hidden.
But you don't know what their symptoms are going to be like. But if it's being ignored because your thyroid panel might be coming back normal by your GP, and yet you're struggling with fatigue, cold extremities, maybe you've got palpitations, or you feel that you have complete brain fog. We can't string a sentence together. Like I said earlier, I couldn't read to our son. It was Thomas the Tank, so it was like really easy, right? And actually I knew most of the stories anyway by that point, because he had a train track and I spent my days lying on the floor with him playing Thomas the Tank. I loved it. I loved being the fat controller. So I was familiar with the stories, and yet I couldn't string the words together. And it wasn't always like that, but there was definitely, the brain fog is awful, and people will tell you that's one of the worst symptoms. You really feel
and it
like
doesn't help confidence either, because then
no.
it starts being kind of rolling ball, isn't it? Because your health is like that, you don't know what's happening. And obviously in your case it was quite significant. It was kind of extreme, wasn't it?
Yes, it was extreme.
And there's many women walking around feeling subtly similar, like you were, like a brain fog, fatigue, and they are just kind of, they don't even have an idea that actually it may be maybe their body actually not functioning at the optimum. And it's not only about what they eat and whether they've got enough vitamin B or anything like that. It can be actually a thyroid. I was going to say it doesn't have to be Hashimoto's necessarily. It can be hypothyroid, but correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, it can take a long time before your numbers really get into that imbalance range with your GP. And it depends. It's a bit of a postcode lottery as well. So I've had clients who come to me and their thyroid stimulating hormone, which is really a hormone secreted by the pituitary gland, which kind of signals to the thyroid to make thyroid hormone. That might,
which lives in the
be
brain, for those
that might actually be at 5, and some GPs won't think that is high enough to warrant any supports in terms of levothyroxine, where other GPs might be looking at supporting at 3, and other GPs might not look at support till 8 or 9. So it really depends on where you're living and who's your doctor and what their view is on what's important. But I think the thing is, as I said,
the symptoms are important.
Yeah, exactly. So
impacting you, isn't it?
As I said, that it, like mine, even now, and maybe if I hadn't addressed it, the numbers would have changed, but I still show normal in terms of the reference ranges. Yet even when I was showing normal, I was severely fatigued. And so you might just be feeling below par. You might just wake up in the morning and think, I just don't have any energy. And yourself, because as humans, we know when we are imbalanced, and I don't really like the word imbalance, because I don't think nature is ever out of balance. I think it's just that the balance is shifted. And so I think that with your health, it's not that you're not balanced, it's just that balance has shifted. So maybe you're not feeling as energetic as you were. Maybe you're noticing that you've got more headaches. Maybe you're noticing that actually you feel colder and you're struggling to regulate your temperature. Maybe you're noticing that your mood's lower, that you have low mood and that you're feeling quite low but down in the dumps and irritable or on the edge, and your ability to tolerate stress is reduced as well. Maybe you notice that you've got irregular heartbeats, or you might get the odd flutter from time to time, or you might just find that actually it's beating slower, because remember, your thyroid is responsible for regulating your temperature and your metabolism. So one of the things I found is my heartbeat was so slow. I was like, I'm gonna die, because it would just like, doof.
Come on.
Hello. So it's just, if the thyroid isn't working properly, then you might just find actually, there's not enough energy there. And so you'll just feel sluggish, because every cell in your body requires thyroid hormone. And if there isn't enough there to support your cells, then you're going to feel fatigued in a kind of a deep level. And you'll know, but your doctor won't necessarily know. So these are my ideal clients, these women who really, they go to their doctor, their bloods are normal, yet they know deep down that they are not fine. And then when we do the testing, we generally find that there's stuff going on. And it might just be that, okay, it's not your thyroid, but I have to be honest with you that so many times I find in my clients, people come to me with skin problems, with gut issues, with fatigue, or intolerance to stress. And when we test them, they've got Hashimoto's. So, I think it's something that's really overlooked because your doctor is not going to test your antibodies. And in my opinion, it's not an expensive test to do. And I think it's worth its weight in gold. And also, I think as women, it's really important for us to have our thyroid, have a healthy thyroid function, because it's so important that that's balanced and synchronized with our hormones, and making sure that we're looking after all of that.
Yeah.
But
also,
obviously,
this is genetically as well, isn't it?
yes,
it's a predisposition. So if anybody's listening and your mom struggled with any thyroid issues, hypothyroidism, I don't think the Hashimoto's came into kind of presence before. I'm sure my mum would never hear.
Oh, in the old days,
it.
no, not at all. Like
but the hypothyroidism was quite
yes.
common. So if there is anything like that, it's, I don't want to say more likely, but the risk is higher, and so it's always worth to test, because based on a conversation we are having, and actually I'm perfect candidate, and I'm going to see Stiana, and we are going to do the test just for that very reason, because I'm not showing any particular symptoms. There are hints, but it can be, cannot be, it can be related to anything else. But my mum suffered with hypothyroidism for most of what I was aware, so since she was like 40-45. So for me it's important, because it's one of the things that you can't fix only with normal approach to healthy eating. And that's the thing which I would like to get across, because there are certain specific nutrients which are important to enhance the not enhance, help me out with.
Support the thyroid. So in order to
Yes,
make the thyroid
yes.
hormone, your body needs specific nutrients,
So
and also the conversion.
You wouldn't necessarily get from normal healthy diet. So that they need a little bit higher dosages, or specific, like selenium, for instance. So you necessarily wouldn't go and have Brazil nuts, enough of them to actually support on a level. So if you can tell us a little bit more about this as well, then why is it important to get it tested and to look into, rather than just trying to actually do it through diet, as we would normally teach our clients to do?
I think you've raised a really important point there. I think that genetically, it's, and I always say this to the people that in my feed, and I think it's important that if you have any family history, especially as a woman with thyroid issues, I think as a bit of an MOT, it's important that you rule it out for yourself and make sure that your thyroid is well and healthy. Like, I'll be testing both my kids. And I think as mothers as well, if you have Hashimoto's or you have a thyroid issue, I think you have a responsibility and a duty to make sure that you test your children, because you want to make sure, I've done both my kids' genetics, and I want to understand what they're more predisposed to, so that I can know how to support my children, so that I give them the best possible health outcomes, and support. But I think it's really... Yeah, and I think it's really important, because you can support yourself. But as you said, it becomes a little bit trickier when you think you're just going to do it all through diet, because if there's something existing there, it can be harder to do. So coming back to the reason why you should be testing, obviously the GP is going to be measuring thyroid stimulating hormone, which is this pituitary hormone. It's also going to measure T4, which is your thyroxine level. So this is your inactive thyroid hormone level. And it makes sense why they're testing that, because, that's kind of what we want to see, how much your body has before it's converting it into its active form. But sometimes we really want to understand how well your body's doing that conversion. Is it converting the T4 to T3 threadenine, or is it not actually making that conversion effectively? And are you missing the nutrients in order to make, ensure that conversion's happening? So that's where
T3, the conversion is important, because that's basically the active one, as
exactly
actually the body takes and works with. So T4 is just kind of floating around. I'm here ready to be converted to something, so I can go to action, basically.
Yes,
just to get a little bit of explanation for those.
I mean, the body does secrete T4 and T3. It does actually make T3 as well, but not a huge amount, very small amount. So you kind of, your body, and this is the nice thing about our body, your body is naturally able to do everything, providing it's got the raw material to do it. And this was part of my healing journey, providing I could provide it what it needed, it could kind of do things. Sometimes it's harder to reverse things once it's already set the stage. You know, once it's there, it's not always so easy to reverse it or get it into remission, but you can definitely get it a lot better. So I think in terms of thyroid testing and doing the private testing, it's one of the first things I'll do with all my clients. We always do a blood test. They're just going to rule out, make sure all of that's good. And I like to do a few other markers in there so that I can see what's going on with some of their nutrient stores, their vitamin D. Yeah, it gives me a really good overview of what's going on with their health. But it just gives me a comprehensive insight into their thyroid, because very often people might be on levothyroxine, and maybe if you're listening, you're taking thyroid medication, which is T4, so this is the inactive thyroid hormone, and you're still not feeling better. And so we want to kind of understand, well, what is happening with that conversion from the T4 to T3? Is that happening properly? Because just having levothyroxine is not necessarily going to sort out what's going on with your health. And definitely if there's Hashimoto's in place, it's not necessarily going to make a massive difference if that is what's going on, because the way in which you support Hashimoto's to hyperthyroidism is very different, because you're working with an immune issue rather than a thyroid issue, so to speak. So it is kind of coming from a completely different perspective, but obviously still supporting the thyroid.
So when you look at it, a whole picture of your story now, from everything you know about thyroid, and you're really diving deep and doing lots of study and research around that. When you look back to that, your first crash and fibromyalgia diagnosis, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think it was already there, or was it
yes,
fibromyalgia
definitely
as well as Hashimoto's, or was it just Hashimoto's? What are your...
You know what, it's so hard for me to really know, because I scored very high in the fibromyalgia diagnosis, and my mum has that as well. So it's difficult for me to kind of rule that out completely. And since I've been working on my thyroid, I still get pain from time to time, very rarely now. I personally, if I'm really honest with you, following my intuition and listening to my gut, I honestly think it was my thyroid more than anything else. But the fibromyalgia side is very connected to that post-exercise fatigue, which I still struggle with. So that is the only thing that kind of makes me doubt it a little bit, that I kind of think that is there as a component. But
which probably Hashimoto's and thyroid issue would kind of underline something like that as well. It would highlight it, wouldn't it? Because the energy,
definitely
regulation. So
definitely. And you know what the thing is, I actually don't really care so much whether it was or not, because
I was just curious.
no, and it's a good question, because I do think about it, and I kind of wonder. I don't really know. I kind of think that
not important, as you say. It's just because you're collecting all those information over the years and learning.
Yes.
So whether you had any suspicion.
I think I see a huge amount of similarities in symptoms, in profile with my fibromyalgia clients. So, you know, it's difficult, and they don't have any thyroid issues. So, and then I don't see those patterns necessarily with my thyroid clients. So I kind of think, yes, potentially. But I mean, at the moment, my health is so good that I just, apart from the fact that I still have slightly elevated TPOs, I mean, it's kind of hovering at 200, and I can't seem to budget from there. I feel amazing. And, you know, this is the thing. Sometimes we kind of have to also kind of go with how we feel rather than look at the results, you know, because it's just a test.
Don't push it the other way, and just know where the balance is.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, checking in.
Exactly.
And see where you are. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it was absolutely lovely. I'm so glad we've been through this, because even me, I just heard bits and bobs on journeys, and but as a whole, it's amazing journey, Stiana. you've got so much to give. You know, and it's not just as a person, as we were talking about love and acceptance, and that's where it all, you know, kind of came from. But that's where you'll used it the most, the love for yourself, love for your body, accepting as you were, and it got you to this point, which is absolutely beautiful.
I think that's
but
the one.
also your
Sorry.
knowledge, also your knowledge of how body works, how connection with the thyroid is, and connection with everything, because you had to investigate so much that you literally didn't leave the stone unturned.
No.
In your body. So you've got really deep understanding of how we work and how you can help, and you love the little science.
I do.
The lovely little geekiness about it as well. So it's absolutely beautiful. So it's a whole package. So I feel really honored having you on the show.
Thank you.
Tonight. Thank you very much.
It's been such a pleasure.
I'll be posting it whenever I can, because it was a lovely conversation and was very inspiring and educational as well. So I would like to know where people can find you, ladies, where they can find you. So if you can tell us, and then also I'll post it in our comments after.
Brilliant, thanks. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and it's the Wellness Junction. Yeah, so that's where you'll find me. And one thing I just want to say, thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely talking to you. I've not really paid attention that we're even live. It's been nice talking to you. But
good.
I just also want to add in there that I think, yes, I have done so much research, so much reading, so much studying. And like I said earlier, I love learning. I never want to stop being a student. I feel blessed to be a student and just to learn. And I feel grateful for my journey. And I love the work I do so much now, to be able to help other women to feel better, more energized, to connect with themselves, and to learn to listen to their bodies. And I feel even more excited because I've learned this new skill of NLP now, where I think so important, because with women with thyroid issues, very often it's because we really struggle to speak our truth. We struggle to speak our minds. We have quite a lot of stuff blocked in. And I think it's so important that we can release those self-limiting beliefs around not feeling good enough, feeling that something's missing. I spent my whole life feeling like that. I wasn't good enough, that, people didn't like me, or whatever the reason was. And I think those things can quietly eat away at you and make you sick. And it's really important that as humans, we can tap into that consciousness, that collective consciousness, that we're all energy beings working together for a higher purpose. And it's so good to be able now to connect with my clients on a much more profound and deeper level, where we can bring some really deep shifts that connects with the nutrition, the lifestyle, the mindset, but then getting really deep into those self-limiting beliefs so that we can shift those. Because once those shifts happen, I can't really put it into words, because I really don't have the words for it. It is completely transformational.
Absolutely. So I'm not going to add anything else to it other than thank you, because it was absolutely brilliant speech at the end. Thank you very much for that. And I'll just post where people can find you, and
brilliant.
feel the transformation
brilliant.
you're giving us all and sharing with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a lovely evening. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.